I don't know about where you are, but for me in Seattle, Washington, food has gotten exorbitantly expensive. I remember a time when food prices increased about 2% year over year, and that's been for the last several decades. The last couple of years, it's been between 5 and 10%. It's too much. I need to find a way to make my weeknight dinners less expensive. So this week, I'm making for you 3 affordable, easy, flavorful, and impressive one-pot meals that won't break the bank. Today, for around $8 a serving, we're making chicken tagine. You could even entertain with this one. Hey there, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm happy to have you here. Today I'm cooking up an easy one-pot Moroccan-inspired chicken tagine. It uses the flavor of bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, whole bunch of Moroccan-inspired spices, tomatoes, and chickpeas. Combine it in one pot, simmer it down, serve it over couscous, and you have a delightful meal. So let's get going on the couscous. Simply measure out equal parts couscous and water. So that's 1 cup of couscous, 1 cup of water that's already come to a boil in my pot. All I'm gonna do is add a little bit of salt to the water. You can add oil or butter too if you'd like, but you can also omit it. Stir in my couscous. Turn off the heat. Cover it with a lid. Move it to the side. And we're done. In about 5 minutes, we'll transfer it into a serving dish and it'll be ready to go. Quick overview of our ingredients. I'm making a half recipe. This will easily serve 4 people, but it's just me eating, so I'm gonna make about half of that. So I've got about 1.5 pounds of chicken thighs. For me, that's 3 chicken thighs. Some chickpeas, garbanzo beans, a can of crushed tomatoes, 1 yellow onion, about 1/2 cup of raisins, a whole handful of cilantro, 110 garlic cloves. Just kidding, I have about 8, but 2 or 3 is plenty. A little bit of neutral flavored oil, that's about 2 tablespoons. Salt, pepper, and a whole bunch of spices. The cost in this meal is mostly in the spices. I've calculated the cost of a full container of each spice, not just the amount that we're using. So you'll have tons of each of these left over to either make this dish again in the future or make something else that's got similar flavors. You might have some of these in your cabinet, but I've assumed that all you have in your cabinet for this recipe is oil, salt, and pepper. So the additional spices that you'll need are cumin, ginger, coriander, cinnamon, smoked paprika, and if you like it spicy, a little bit of cayenne. Let's get going. Super simple preparation of our chicken here. We're simply gonna salt and pepper both sides. Turn our pot on between medium and high. Get a tiny little bit of oil in the pan. It's about 1/2 tablespoon. Move that around to coat the bottom. And drop our chicken thighs, skin side down. The point here is to render out a little bit of the chicken fat, get some of that good flavor from the bone and skin, and create a nice base for the rest of our dish. I'm simply going to salt and pepper the other side of my chicken thighs. We're gonna let those go. I remember the first time I tried Moroccan food. Friend of a friend had come here from Morocco, had an actual tagine, which is a conical clay pot that he used to cook his Moroccan food in. And it was much more authentic, of course, than this is. He had things like preserved lemons and olives and even different sweet fruits like apricots in his tagine. But I'll never forget those flavors. The right mix of sweet and herby and spicy. I would recommend entertaining with this one. So we've got our onion diced up. Put that in a bowl off to the side. Now some cilantro. This is cilantro from my herb garden. I would highly recommend, if you're on a budget and you like to cook, to buy a couple of starts and create your own little container garden. You don't need any amount of space and it will save you just a ton of money and add a ton of flavor. If cilantro isn't your jam, use parsley, but I love cilantro. So off to the side that goes. Next is our garlic. I'm really a choose your own adventure kind of garlic person. Use as much or as little as you like. I have a whole bunch of garlic in my fridge, so you'll see I've got like 7 or 8 cloves here. but it's completely up to you how much garlic you want to use. Garlic is chopped. Let's go check on our chicken thighs. We're getting some nice color on those chicken thighs. It's exactly what you want. We're not trying to cook them at this stage. We're simply trying to brown them. They're going to simmer down later in the broth that we make in this same pan. So a couple more minutes on the other side. While our chicken thighs continue cooking, I'm gonna open up a couple cans. You can use whichever tomato product you want. I've got a can of crushed tomatoes. You can use diced tomatoes, you can use whole tomatoes and crush them with your hands. It's really completely up to you, whatever you have in your pantry. I'm gonna drain these chickpeas, but no need to rinse them. The only other ingredients beyond our garlic, our onion, and our raisins are our spices. Let's get those measured out while our chicken continues to cook. It's starting to smell amazing in here. So it's time to measure our spices. This is going to be a do as I say, not as I do situation, because I am going to really bump up the spice flavor in this dish. I've provided to you in the description box below a really approachable version of this dish, but I would recommend trying it the way I've written it below first, and then if you like it and want to bump up the flavor even more, go ahead and bump it up. So as per usual, I'm measuring into my hands. Cumin is something I would add about a tablespoon of, but I'm on my last legs of cumin, so I probably have about a teaspoon at most there. Try to get every last bit of the cumin. About a tablespoon of smoked paprika. About a shy tablespoon of ground ginger. Call that maybe 2 teaspoons. About a tablespoon of ground coriander. A teaspoon of cinnamon. Cinnamon can very easily overpower a dish, and you just want it to be that something in a background versus tasting like a pumpkin pie. So a teaspoon of cinnamon. And finally, a couple shakes of cayenne pepper. And our spice mixture is done. Okay, we've got some beautiful browning on our chicken thighs on both sides. So I'm gonna remove these chicken thighs and set them aside. Again, they're not meant to be cooked entirely. They're meant to just be browned and to give off some of their fat for us to cook the rest of the dish in. Set them aside. If need be, we can add a little bit more oil. So we've probably got about a tablespoon and a half there. I am gonna add a little bit more. It's probably another tablespoon of a neutral oil. That's avocado oil. And then I'm gonna begin adding the rest of our ingredients. So first things first, onion goes in. Give that a stir, turn the heat down a little bit. I'm trying to get this onion nice and translucent. Let that cook for maybe 3 minutes. Our onions have gotten translucent and gotten a little bit of color on them. So next, we're gonna complete the step called blooming the spices. If you ever really want to get as much flavor as possible out of your spices in a dish like this, be sure to cook them a little bit before you add a ton of liquid to them. It really blooms the flavor. It makes them richer and deeper and frankly just more flavorful. In goes our spices and our garlic. At this point, we want to be really careful because garlic can quite easily burn. So we just want to be sure to stand here and stir and make sure that we're not smelling or seeing any of our garlic burn. Immediately when those spices hit the hot oil, you can start to smell them. Okay, it's been about a minute. Spices are bloomed. I can smell the garlic. It's nice and fragrant. It's time to add our remaining ingredients, chickpeas, tomatoes, and raisins. Be very careful. Tomatoes can pretty easily splatter. What I'm gonna do to get all of that delicious tomato goodness is actually put a little bit of water in this can and add that in as well. And our chickpeas. Give that a stir. Half a cup of raisins go in. If you're not into the raisins, you can easily omit them. It does add a nice sweet something in the background. Additional add-ins beyond just the raisins could potentially be any sort of green pitted olive. Preserved lemons are delicious in this. Some people might add apricots, or you could just bump up the volume with additional types of beans or additional veggies. For me, it's raisins. The raisins go in. Gonna give this a stir. And then all I'm gonna do is nestle our chicken back into this delightful sauce. Before I do that though, I'm gonna taste it just to make sure our seasonings are right. We'll give this a little bit of a taste for salt and pepper. Really good. Needs more salt and pepper. And a big pinch of salt. Okay. Stir that in. And it's time to nestle our chicken thighs back in. And definitely don't forget all of that delicious chicken flavor that's at the bottom of our dish. And the hard work is done. All we have to do is let this cook now. The chicken is gonna go until it's about 165 internal temperature, which will probably take 25 to 30 minutes. Could go for longer if you need it to. We'll check back in about 25 minutes and see where we are. It's been about 30 minutes and our chicken is done. All you have to do is either use an instant read thermometer and make sure each of the thighs has reached about 165 degrees, or simply pull one of the thighs out after 20 to 30 minutes, cut into it, see if the juices run clear and if the meat looks done. If it's done, you can pull it out. If it's not, leave it in for a little bit longer. Okay, a little bit of our couscous from before goes down first. Then in with some of the chickpeas and tomato sauce. And our chicken thigh. Chicken thigh goes on top. And last but not least, a sprinkle of cilantro. So I've done the math on this one pot Moroccan-inspired chicken tagine. We're between $32 and $40 total for the meal. Most of that cost is actually the spices. For 4 servings, between $8 and $10 a person, a meal that's super impressive, unique, and something you could entertain with, I'd say that's pretty good. Nice and piping hot. This dish is so impressive. The depth of flavor is amazing, and it's really humble ingredients. Very easy, approachable for a beginner, affordable, one pot of cleanup. For between $8 and $10 a person, we've got a delicious, healthy, hearty, flavorful, and impressive meal. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you give this one a try. If you do, let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give it a like. And if you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for being here. Cheers.